they defeated Getafe. We move on to react to Luis Enrique. He had some in my opinion, very shocking comments discussing Xavi in Barcelona in this new documentary, which was it's one of those documentaries that follows the team. The all or nothing. Actually, let me see what's the documentary called. Yeah, it's one of those Amazon Prime all or nothing sort of documentaries, and during those documentaries, PSG coach Luis Enrique described Xavi Hernandez's Barcelona side as a team that played long ball football like Eibar. Um, this was um, this was released after this was released recently, and it followed the team during last season, his first season in charge of PSG. And we know PSG, they took on Barcelona in the Champions League quarterfinal last season. They lost that first leg in Paris 3-2, but they came back and they won that second leg 4-1 at the Olympic Stadium in Barcelona. During the documentary, he said Barcelona aren't guaranteed to dominate games. They haven't in 2 seasons with Xavi. They aren't a dominant team, and they are not a good team defensively either. They defend with bodies, but they don't have quality in the defense. And Luis Enrique, he doubled down on his opinion of Xavi Barcelona even after they lost that first game at the Parc des Princes. It's a lie to say Barcelona were better. That's completely false. They played long balls. Ter Stegen broke the record for long passes. I think it was 24. They play like Eibar. It was all long balls. Call it the third man. Call it the third man if you're a fan of Xavi. Shaxi. I don't know what that means, but I think that's a typo. But yeah, so we know Luis Enrique. He's former manager of Xavi, and yeah, and then it goes on in the documentary ahead of that return leg. The documentary really focuses on Luis Enrique and how he was encouraging Mbappe to work harder. He was having one-on-one meetings with him and discussing why he needs him to press more. He was telling Mbappe, you have to be a leader. You have to help us defend like a son of a, lead by example, press, and we'll be a effing machine. PSG did end up going on to win that second leg as well. A lot helped because of that red card that Ronald Dorajo had, the denying of an obvious goal scoring opportunity, and it completely changed the tie. Barcelona, they were up 2 goals at that point because they scored an early goal at home, so they were up 2 goals at that point. That red card happens, completely changes the game, and PSG go on to get go on to score 4 straight afterwards, and it just completely changes the game. And ahead of the release of this documentary, Luis Enrique said that tie against Barcelona was horrible, and he hopes that he never manages his former team again in his managerial career. He also discussed how Barcelona potentially inquired to him about a possible return during the 2022-23 season. He said they called my agent. I said to him, ask them what happens if Xavi wins La Liga and Copa. Are they going to sack him? I already knew the answer. And yeah, the documentary overall is really interesting. It starts off from Luis Enrique's introduction. There's some interesting elements with Mbappe as well. Um, and is yeah, but going back, I do have to say the way he's slamming Barcelona style was really confusing. Because by the way, this is a Xavi that I mean Luis Enrique that managed Xavi, was his former manager, and we saw some of the pre-game scenes before that game, the hugging, the positivity from Luis Enrique. I have to say this is a little feel a little bit backstabby to completely criticize the way that they go about it. And by the way, I did watch the PSG and Barcelona games both legs. I don't remember exactly how, especially that first leg went. I have to say at the top of my head, but I don't remember Barcelona being as defensive as what Luis Enrique is making them out to be. Now look, Barcelona definitely they weren't, you know, the tiki taka Pep Guardiola Luis Enrique way. It was a little bit of a mix. They had a little bit, it's not also a Hansi Flick way, but they had that a little element of being a little bit direct, but they were still able to control games in possession, and they weren't as heavy metal as Hansi Flick, but they weren't as silky and as tiki taka centric as a Pep Guardiola play. It was a little bit of a mix and match, and I don't remember exactly how that game went, but you're going away against PSG. Sometimes I think it is excusable to go long, and this again, no, this is not the Barcelona teams of the past as well that Xavi was managing this past season. There was injuries, there was the financial issues. These are not Barcelona players that are, Barcelona usually has the best in class at every position. That Barcelona team are far from that. You have Lewandowski in that team that didn't even have a great that past season. Yeah, you could say he, if he's not the best in class, he's still up there, I guess. But apart from that, you had Kunde, and then there was a little bit of a younger Lamine Yamal, which he doesn't get much younger, but Lamine Yamal was also involved in that team. But again, it was a Rafinha team that was pretty poor. Sergio Roberto was playing in midfield. Gundogan, we know he wasn't the same player that he was at City. Frenkie de Jong, he's one of those players, yes. And then João Cancelo playing left back. Jules Koundé is one of them. Ter Stegen is one of those players. João Cancelo on his day, he could be one of those. But again, Barcelona team and the team in the past is world-class players at every single position. And Xavi wasn't afforded that opportunity. In fact, you look at across the platform, this is Luis Enrique. He did have the likes of an Mbappe, a Vitinha, Fabian Ruiz. We know what Fabian Ruiz did in the European Championship. A Nuno Mendes, a Lucas Hernandez, a Marquinhos, who's not quite at that level, but that he was in the past. But he still provides the experience, the leadership. You have Donnarumma. You have players like Ugarte on the bench, Zaire Emery. On the bench, Milan Skriniar. So I just think it was a little disrespectful, a little not snakish, but a little disloyal to someone. You're supposed to have that sensitivity and soft spot to your players, and yes, some of these things can be, this is just him talking to his team and all that, but he's well aware that there's cameras and that they're doing this documentary on us, and I do want to have to say, with these, all or nothing sort of documentaries, do the managers have final say in what goes out? Do the managers, if like I've watched the Arsenal one, the City ones in the past. Let's say Mikel Arteta, he wanted to hold a team meeting with his Arsenal players. Could he say this team meeting is just for the team, no cameras in here? Could they do that? Do they have that? Do they have that opportunity, or is it full out access no matter what? Because again, if that's the case, then that is a little bit rough. Because again, Luis Enrique, he's he's talking to his team in these situations, and he can't pinch his mouse in front of his team. He's gonna say his opinion. He's gonna say uh, what he thinks of the opposition. So who knows? I do think it was pretty harsh though.